Well, we're ready to endeavor in what some might not think is the most exciting aspect of a class like this, and that is over church polity and government. But I think it's a very important aspect of a class like this, and I think it's something that you should be aware of before you make your decision on staying with Calvary Bible Church and becoming a member. Because the way a church governs itself and its structure and its offices and choosing of officers and all those things is very important. And there are no shortage of options out there for finding different types of church polity and different things that the churches are doing. And so we think this is an important aspect. If you have your handout, you can have that out, the Calvary Bible Church Newcomers class handout. And then also you'll want the Constitution out and open to page 9 or Article 7 that actually says government and leadership. When we talk about church polity, that's really what we mean, the church government. How is the church governed? How are decisions made in the church? What is the authority structure of a church? All those things are really important to understand. And as we've said, we try to be a church that does everything with biblical intentionality. And that should include our church government. We need to reflect the best we can what we see in the New Testament principles and order of those letters and how a church should organize itself. And that's what we've tried to do. We really tried to organize a polity that best reflects the Scriptures. So if we look at Article 7 in Section 1 under government, it says that Calvary Bible Church is an elder-led church with congregational participation. Therefore, the government of this church will be entrusted to the elders, with the assistance and advisement of the deacons, church officers, church committees, and the congregation. All major decisions, including but not limited to the appointment of elder pastor overseers, deacons, and the approval of the annual budget, will be presented to the congregation for a vote of affirmation. After reviewing the vote, the issue will be prayerfully considered by the elders before a final decision is made. Now let me say this, and I had meant to say this at the beginning, but I'll say it now. When we look into the New Testament, what we see is as the churches were forming, congregations, think about like the congregation at Rome and Ephesus and Colossae, those local congregations were forming. It becomes clear that these congregations weren't to be just free-for-alls and everybody doing and saying and thinking what they want. That the church was to have structure and order. As a matter of fact, at the time of this recording, I'm preaching through the Gospel of Matthew, and we're in this week, Matthew chapter 16, where the Apostle Peter makes that great confession about Jesus. You are the Christ, the Son of the living God. And that confession is something that all Christians have to bind together, so we got to believe the same thing about Jesus. But in addition to that, Jesus tells Peter that, his name is Peter, which means rock, and upon this rock he will build his church. And so Peter was going to have this key role in that early church. And what we later see is that all of the apostles and prophets of the New Testament were the foundation upon which Jesus built the church, of course, he being the cornerstone. But there is this aspect to that struck me, that right from the beginning, when Jesus said, I will build my church, there would be order to it. There would be structure. There would be even authority. There would be leadership. There would be offices. And we start seeing those things flesh out in the New Testament. I hope that's reflected in what we're doing in our Constitution under government and leadership. Now, this paragraph I read to you kind of summarizes the way we govern things at Calvary. There are really two, I maybe not use the word extremes, but two general categories of church governance that you can find in most churches. On the one hand, you've been a part of this or know of churches that are congregational in nature. And the way they govern things and make decisions, especially major decisions, is that the church is always put to a vote. And each person, each member of that congregation has a 1% say, if you will, in the direction of the church. And they always have some kind of percentage-based vote that they need to bring somebody in as an elder or a deacon, or what color of carpeting they're going to have, or should they do a building project, or what are they going to do. And it's congregational, so it's going on basically a majority rule type of thing. On the other end of the spectrum, you have an elder-ruled church, and they would say that the elders make all the final decisions, and a lot of times in churches like that and structures like that, the church doesn't even know what's happening until it already happens, especially even in major decisions. I've heard of stories where people showed up on a Sunday morning and found out that day that there would be a new elder appointed to the elder team, and the church hadn't even had an opportunity to examine this man or hear about this at all. Now, I'm not saying our polity is somewhere in the middle of that. We do lean towards more of the elder rule than we do the congregational, but there are some aspects you see in it from both of those. We call it an elder-led church with congregational participation. In other words, in the end, as you see from that paragraph from our Constitution, decisions are in the end made by the elder team. We believe that elder, pastor, overseers have been entrusted with a certain level of authority and even managerial authority, overseeing God's church, and they have to make the best decisions they can. However, we do also see in the New Testament, in the book of Acts, the congregation being involved in some of these aspects, like bringing in new elders or deacons and such, and having some kind of influence into that. So what we have established is this elder-led with congregational participation, meaning, essentially, when a major decision is going to be made, we will elicit the feedback of the congregation. We call it here a vote of affirmation. Sometimes that's a formal thing we do. We'll actually hand out pieces of paper, and sometimes we will just let you know what we're thinking about doing, but would like feedback. And what we're really looking for in that time is to see if really we have the unity of the Spirit in something that we want to do, or perhaps a new church officer coming in, a new elder, a new deacon. I think it's very important to gain kind of the consensus of the congregation in those times. Now, those votes are, the results of them are not really on a percentage basis. That's not what we're looking for. And as a matter of fact, in those votes, you will see something to the effect of, do you think we should do this? Yes or no? If no, tell us why. And we really want to encourage people to be coming to us behind the scenes if there are issues or concerns or ideas, so that we're not even really in need much of the formality of those votes of affirmation. However, though, we do use those. And so we want to listen, but in the end, and I like to emphasize this because if you're coming from a congregational background, this may become a problem for you. In the end, the elders make all the final decisions, and that includes really on anything in the church. And so we like to make that very clear coming in. Now, we have to just trust the Lord in the years to come that as men are raised up here to lead the congregation, they will be Spirit-led men, and that's why there's always safety in having a plurality of elders and such for accountability and that. But that's how we have structured our church governance. That's really how decisions are made. Now, even within this portion here of the Constitution, we had those two offices come up, elder and deacon. We believe those are the two New Testament offices given to the church in the day and age in which we live. There are elders, which we also think are pastors and overseers. In other words, we do not believe that there is a distinction between elders and pastors. Maybe you've gone to a church where they have an elder board, And honestly, we don't like that word board very much. We prefer team. But the elder team over here, and then you have your staff pastors over here. And sometimes they don't even get along. But the reality is, we believe that an elder is a pastor, is an overseer. That it is one office that the Bible talks about with different various roles and functions for that one office. So when we're talking about an elder, I'm an elder. And at the time of this video, we have 4 elders. 2 of us are on staff. That's Graham and me. And then 2 others are what we would call lay elders. And as of the time of this recording, we meet once a week when we can and pray over the things of the church and discuss situations, issues, concerns going on within the church, and we lead the congregation in that way. So we have elder, pastor, overseers, and if you have any questions on that, you can talk to me behind the scenes, because especially about how we see that one office and those 3 roles. If you're coming from different places, I can show you scriptures where we believe it teaches that. But in addition to that, then you have the office of deacon. These are servants to the church. We believe that Acts 6 is really, you could take some time to look at Acts 6, really where you have the beginning of the deacon ministry. By the time you get to Paul's letter to the Philippians, you already have overseers and deacons, or elders and deacons being mentioned. And so we believe deacons are a separate category in which they are not in positions of authority like we would have on the elder team. In the church I grew up in a fundamental Baptist church, and we had one lead senior pastor, and then we had a board of deacons, and essentially those deacons functioned as elders. And we don't think that's what the Bible teaches. As a matter of fact, it looks like from the biblical understanding of a deacon that they are actually to be devoted to things helping the elders do the eldering. Elders do the shepherding, the prayer and ministry of the word. And then the deacons, and in our congregation this is especially true, organize and take care of things other than that. Property, building, budget, other things of that nature that they're watching over and taking care of. A number of years ago, we switched to from having a regular deacon team who shared the responsibilities of all of our grounds and everything of that nature, to what we call task-specific deaconing. And in that, each deacon has a specific role. So we have a deacon, as an example, over our building cleaning. And he doesn't have to do all the building cleaning. What he does is has a team that he makes sure is scheduled and taking care of things, and he handles any issues that come up. So we have deacons now that just are specifically assigned to tasks. And that way they don't feel the weight of taking care of everything in the church. They are freed up, because all of them are laymen with other positions and jobs they have. They can just worry about and take care of their specific office and where they are specifically ministering. As I mentioned, back to elders, we have a plurality of elders. We want to have more than one. We think that reflects the biblical teaching. We are equal in office, yet different in role and function. I have a different role and function than Graham, and I have a different role and function than Phil or Aaron. And so we have that same office, but we each have different responsibilities. And of course, not as much as required as far as in the church ministry for our lay elders who have employment outside the church than is for Graham and I who are on staff here. And so we need that plurality of elders. There is the Bible tells us that there is wisdom in a multitude of counselors. And I love to hear the ideas of the other men and bounce my ideas off of them, and even have an iron sharpening iron. And I like the idea of how God has established this and having a plurality of elders. And I think there is a certain level of safety within it. Also important to understand about our church when it comes to this is that we are complementarian. Essentially what that means is that when God made Adam and Eve, He made them distinct, male and female, even though they are equally made in His image. Genesis 1 clearly reflects that. And we believe that God has established men to be leaders in the home and in the church, that He has called them to exercise biblical headship and godly, loving authority in the church and in their home. In addition to that, when Paul is talking about, let me say this, they are made distinctly, but they complement one another. That is male and female. And so in the home, Paul has established roles for the husband and the wife, and each of them work together in a complementary fashion, displaying God's glory. But in Paul's letter to Timothy, when he talks about those who can lead the church as elders, or he uses the term there, overseers, the idea is that it must be a man who is already leading well over his own household, because he is promoting male leadership within both the home and the church. As a matter of fact, Paul says that he does not permit a woman to exercise authority or to teach over a man. And one of the qualifications to being an elder was to be able to teach. And so we do not believe that based on God's creation order and based on His desire for male leadership and authority, both in the home and in the church, that women can fill the role of an elder. So we are complementarian. We recognize that that may be different from some of the ways you have been taught in other churches. And any of these things that I deal with here, you are welcome to come to us and talk to us behind the scenes when we can spend more time dealing with. We have a process by which someone would have to undergo to become either an elder or a deacon. The congregation is involved in that process. So usually what we'll do is if we have a man interested in becoming an elder, they will talk to us about that. They'll fill out an application. We'll prayerfully meet with them, think through that, even meeting with their family to a degree and talking to them about it. And then we'll make it known to the congregation. And there is a time of watching, especially now. This is especially true in the office of elder. There's a time of watching so that the congregation can see this man and see if they are biblically qualified and if they agree with the assessment of the elders by the time we then come to a formal vote of affirmation. So we take the offices very seriously. We don't do the thing that some churches practice where every year they just nominate different people to fulfill an office and they fill it for a certain amount of time and then they're out of that. We think this needs to be prayerfully thought through. There needs to be a time of testing, and the congregation needs to be involved in these kinds of decisions, putting leadership in place of them. We'll talk about the importance in just a little bit in our section on membership of that relationship between pastors and the congregation. And so we just want to emphasize the fact that we take that very seriously, and it takes time for someone to become an elder of our congregation. They would need to be coming for quite a bit of time and then have interaction with the other leaders and such. And so we want to do our best to reflect God's principles in the way we do those kinds of things as well. So I want to encourage you to read through Article 7 of the Constitution, government leadership. It has many of the other things under all of these that is established here and set up. Take the time to read through that. And like I said, if you have any questions for us, then you can go ahead and ask us at your earliest convenience. Thank you.